If you're getting ready for your next oil change, there are some common mistakes that a lot of people make when they're doing their own oil changes on their vehicles. Today we're going to cover the top 12 or the 12 most common mistakes people make when they change their engine's oil. One of the most common mistakes people make is that they don't actually prepare for their oil change. If you think about going to your local oil change place, you can realize quickly that they are prepared for an oil change. All parts and all oils are immediately accessible, all tools are easily available, and everything is set and ready to go immediately. In order to get things going easily, get everything ready ahead of time. Get your oil together, all your parts, all your tools before you even start on your oil change. The second most common mistake people make is that they don't warm up their engine prior to changing the oil. In this case, you want to run your vehicle approximately 5 to 10 minutes up to operating temperature to make sure the engine oil is nice and warm. That way it will actually flow out of the drain plug a lot easier, and you make sure you can get all of the oil out of your engine before you replace it. Another common mistake people make is that when they're actually taking out the drain plug, they drop it into the bucket with the oil. And then they have to go find it and fish it out of there. So they have to get their hand in there and get it nice and oily because they dropped the drain plug in there. So be sure to go ahead, get a good grip on there. Don't drop the drain plug in there. And always, if you're going to do that, I like to wear gloves while I'm doing the oil change. That way, if I have to reach that in there, I actually don't get oil all over my fingers. The next most common mistake people make is that they over tighten the oil drain plug and potentially strip out the threads. When you tighten it down, either match the factory spec with a torque wrench or just go till it touches and is tight and just give it a little bit. Not a lot! The next common mistake people make is that they don't replace the drain plug often enough. Normally you can replace them with either a plastic drain plug washer or copper or rubber, depending on what your application is, but you should always replace them on a good frequency to make sure that they will not leak once your job is done. The next most common mistake people often make is that they decide, I don't really need to change the oil filter, do I? Nah. Actually, you should be changing your engine oil filter with every oil change to make sure that you take out any contaminants that are stuck in your filter. These are only usually probably $10 or less, depending on what your vehicle is, but make sure you always change your filter with every oil change. So the next most common mistake people often make is when they take the oil filter off of the engine, they don't realize they've actually left behind the gasket or the seal from the old oil filter. When you take it off, you'll notice there's no seal on it, and this will actually be stuck to the engine block. And, well, when they go to put the new one on, they actually put on a new one with a gasket, and there's two gaskets on there, and it tends to leak over time or immediately. So always double check that you actually got the gasket off when you take the oil filter off. So the eighth most common mistake people make when they change their own oil is that they actually install the filter without putting lubrication on the seal before they install it. And it's just a matter of dipping your finger into oil, rubbing around the circumference of the seal itself. Just make sure it has a good lubrication barrier when you install it onto the engine block. Now number 9 goes right along with it of the installation of the oil filter, is that you either under or over tighten the filter itself when it goes on. The key to doing this is actually installing it all the way until this gasket surface touches and you can feel some resistance, and then you need to go approximately a quarter or a half of a turn, and that's it. You don't need to over tighten it, nor do you need to under tighten it. So you can spin it all the way until it contacts, then give it another quarter to a half turn, and that's all you need to be able to tighten your oil filter completely. Number 10 on our list of the most common mistakes people make changing their own oil is they added the wrong viscosity of oil for their engine. A lot of times in your owner's manual, or you can find resources online to find the correct viscosity. You notice in front of you there are 3 different types. There is a SAE 0W40, a 10W30, and a 10W40. These all have different viscosities, so what you want to know is what is required for your vehicle and make sure you purchase that based on its recommendations. If it's a 5W30 recommended, stay with a 5W30. If it's a 10W40, stay with a 10W40. Make sure it's the right type and the right viscosity for your vehicle. Number 11 on our list goes right along with oil, and that is making sure we add the correct quantity. A lot of times you'll get them in exact quarts, and your vehicle may take 4.5 quarts. Don't add the 5th quart and put all of it in. You don't want to overfill your oil, because that way it will start to add extra oil, or may burn oil and may blow oil out of your dipstick or out of your PCV valve and cause your engine to smoke. Make sure you add the exact quantity that your owner's manual or the resource online tells you. Number 12 on our list of the 12 most common mistakes people make changing their own oil is forgetting to replace the oil filler cap after they have added the oil. What will happen is it will actually blow oil or mist up out of that area, and it will cover your complete engine. So make sure you put your cap back on after you've installed the oil, and make sure it is nice and secured and tightened on there. So that's the 12 most common mistakes people make when they change their own oil. Now that you know what not to do, we'll see you next time.